talk about reverse osmosis filters. This is a basic reverse osmosis filter. I've had this unit for maybe 8 years. I've replaced the individual components inside of it a few times. Some reverse osmosis have more canisters than what I'm showing here. I'll try and touch on that a little bit. I'm just going to give a basic overview of what it is right now and how it works. This is your supply line. The water will come from your spigot, or you can tap it into a pipe with a saddle valve. It comes in here, goes into this first canister, which is a pre-filter or particulate filter. This particular one filters down to 1 micron, so anything above 1 micron in size will not pass through this. All it does is remove particles from the water. From here, it'll go into our carbon block filter. The purpose of a carbon block filter, when used with a reverse osmosis membrane, is to remove chlorine and chloramines from the water. You want to do that because if you get chlorine or chloramines into the RO membrane itself, it'll destroy the membrane and you have to replace it. So this particular one filters to 0.5 microns, and it's got a high rating for chlorine removal at about 20,000 gallons, so you can pass approximately 20,000 gallons of water through it before it is exhausted and can't absorb any more chlorine. So after the water flows through there, it comes out and then it enters the reverse osmosis filter. This does the majority of removing any particles smaller than whatever your smallest micron level of these filters is, and it comes through and passes out. You have 2 outlets. One is the product water, and the other will be the wastewater, which goes over to your sink or wherever you drain that through. I have an added deionization chamber on here, so the water passes in through the back, goes through the deionization, which removes anything that the reverse osmosis filter doesn't remove, or technically anything. And then your product water will come out here, and then you store it in a vessel or a bucket, or however you want, wherever you want to keep it. So that's the basic operation of it. Okay, let's talk about the components of this filter a little bit more. This is a standard 10-inch unit. These are the most common for home and aquarium use. The 10-inch comes from the size of the inserts that go in here, this pre-filter. As you can see, is about 10 inches in length. So these are the most common. And you can get these parts pretty much anywhere, and they're interchangeable. You don't have to go back to the same place that you bought the unit from. You can mix and match these parts. These pre-filters come in many filtration sizes. I think the most common for home and aquarium use are 10 micron, 5 micron, and 1 micron. The smaller the number, the smaller the particle it filters out. Some units will have multiple particle filters. Typically they'll have a larger micron filter first and then a smaller micron filter. I've used this one like this for many years. I've never really seen the need to have those additional micron filters. This is going to stop anything from above 1 micron. And this cartridge generally lasts me about 3 months, and we go through approximately 100 gallons of product water a week. So we use this a lot, and I haven't noticed any, as time goes by, the pressure dropping or anything like that. I just don't see a need for these other pre-filters on here. The carbon block, again, comes in many different micron sizes. I like to use a carbon block filter that has about the same size micron as the particle filter. I don't want to use the carbon block filter to catch particles. That's what I have this for. I only want this to remove chlorines to protect the membrane. So you can, if you want to have a 5 micron filter and a 1 micron filter carbon block, fine. I want to use this cheap filter that costs me about $2 as opposed to this that costs me $6 or $8 to catch particles. That's just me. Now the biggest part is the reverse osmosis membrane. I'll pop this out real quick to show you. Take that off. These come in many sizes too. This is a 75 gallon per day unit. It filters out about 98%. It has a rejection rate of about 98%. I see a lot of people purchase 100 gallon per day, 150 gallon per day RO membranes, and I cannot see why they need to do that. We have a system, our aquarium system is approximately 450 to 500 gallons, and this 75 gallon unit does us just fine. So this is our membrane, 75 gallons per day. These should last 3 years, 4 years. I think this one is about 4 years old and it's still working just fine. The key to that, like I said earlier, is replacing this carbon block so you don't get chlorine into this filter, and it should last many, many years. When you replace this, you got to make sure it's pressed in real far, seated all the way in there. Just like that. And then let's move on to the deionization. With this membrane removing about 98%, that leaves only 2% of ions and other things that this won't remove to remove. One thing I wanted to state about the larger 75 or 100, 150 gallon per day membranes, a lot of those are not true reverse osmosis. They are nano filters or micro filters, and they have some of them have a rejection rate of around 94%. So that leaves a whole lot more for your deionization to filter out, and this can get expensive after a while. One of these cartridges will last me 5 to 6 months. It's full of beads, deionization resins, and the more you can filter out with this, the more money you're going to save, and the less often you're going to have to change this part of the filter out. So I would, really recommend looking at the rejection rate of the membrane to make sure that you're getting a true reverse osmosis membrane and not a nano filter or something like that. So put this back on here. Actually, I'm going to leave this out because I'm going to show the rejection rate here. I'm going to turn this back on and show you some of the other components that are on here. So we'll put that back in like this, and I'll be right back. Okay, I have the unit running right now. I took the deionization cartridge out to show you a few things on here. First, this is a pressure gauge. Right now, I don't know if you can see it, it's showing about 40 psi. This is in the middle of the day right now. Typically I run this unit at night and we get right about 50 psi in the middle of the night when none of the neighbors are using water and we're not using water or anything like that. Some people use these to gauge when these filters are clogged. I really haven't noticed any difference. Even when this filter is completely brown and clogged up and needs to be replaced, I still get about the same PSI rating from it. I purchased this as an add-on. It was maybe 10 bucks or so. If I had to do it again, I probably wouldn't because I don't really notice anything from it. This second meter here is a TDS meter. It's an inline one. You have one probe that goes on to the feed line and the second probe that comes out on your production water line after all your filtration. The reason I took the deionization out is you can test the how well your water is working, your membrane is working by this. It has two settings. One is the in setting, which shows right now we are about 125 parts per million. It's testing from this right now. This is the raw water coming right from our tap. So it goes in through all this, goes through the reverse osmosis membrane. I switch it over to the out, which is showing right now about 4 parts per million. So it's showing that our membrane is working about as efficiently as it can. If this was much higher than that, then I would assume that my reverse osmosis membrane was shot. But as it's running right now, it's about where I expect it to be with the 98% rejection rate. I'll turn this off here in a second and put the deionization back in and take another reading, and hopefully it'll show that we're getting 0 TDS water, which is what we want with a unit like this. So give me a minute and I'll be right back. Okay, so now we're running again with the deionization cartridge back in, and we're showing approximately 0 parts per million. It's bounced around between 0 and 1. Might be a little bit of the old water mixed in there, but it's about as pure as you're going to get, and that's what you're looking for from a RO filter with deionization on there. As low parts per million as you can. This is an old cartridge. You can tell this is a color changing deionization in there. You can tell the difference in the color between these two. This is exhausted. But I wanted to show you that most of these are refillable. You just unscrew this, remove this filter sponge in here, and you can see the little beads that are on here. Oh, I forgot to turn my light on. Might help. You can see the little beads that are in here. You can dump those out, and you can buy a replacement deionization. This is in a vacuum sealed bag. You want to make sure that if you do buy deionization beads that they do come vacuum sealed, or at least sealed in some way, because if they're exposed to air, CO2, the beads will absorb CO2, and you're going to lose a lot of the capacity to remove ions from the water, which is the whole point of using this. So you cut this open and jam pack it in here as tight as you can get it, and press the cap back on. You want to make sure that it's as tight as you can get it. If they're loose in there, which over time, as you use it, they will loosen up. But if it's loose, then water can pass by these beads, and it won't be nearly as effective. It's called channeling. A lot of the less expensive reverse osmosis deionization units, you'll see a small canister that's up on top. You really want to avoid those as you can. If you have one, you can remove that and get an add-on unit like this. These usually are about $30 online or from your local fish store. The ones that sit on top here, like I said, the beads will shrink and the water will be allowed to flow over top of the beads and pretty much bypass the beads altogether, so it's almost useless, like you're not even using it. You want something that's vertical like this. The water comes in and is forced up through the bottom, so it's forced to go past all of the deionization beads in there. So that's about all I have right now. Hopefully this sheds a little bit of light on how reverse osmosis units work and some things to look for when if you're out in the market for them or replacing your components. Any questions, feel free to ask.